Hey YouTube, it's me, Black Cat again, and today I'll be presenting you an update video of my Windwitch Trickstar deck. This is post-May 2018 ban list, and I found a way to make this still consistent like the last time, and I've made quite a lot of changes this time. So hopefully you guys will enjoy, and let's get started. Alright, to start things off on the standard Trickstar engine, we play Triple Candida, basically the Stratos of this deck. When she's normal summon, you can search out any Trickstar card from your deck to your hand. Also, you can inflict 200 life points to your opponent for each time he activates a spell or trap. So, excellent card. Yeah, it's really good. Searches out anything, and yeah, it's a really great opener to have. Next up, we got probably the best card in the entire deck, Trickstar Licorice. You could, and what's funny enough is like if you have multiple copies of this in your hand, and you normal summon a Candida, not only do you get a search off, but you can reveal all your Licorices and summon them all at the same time just by bouncing one Candida. But anyway, what she mainly does is like, it's a quick effect. You reveal one, target one Trickstar monster you control, bounce it back to your hand, special summon this in its place, and you get to inflict 200 points of damage for each card your opponent draws into or adds to his hand, so it's really, really good. And of course, we got one Lilybell. One of my personal favorites. She has the ability to attack directly to your opponent, regardless if he has monsters or not. And also, if this card is added to your hand except by drawing, you get to special summon this once per turn. And also, whenever she inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you get to add one Trickstar monster from your graveyard back to your hand. So really excellent, but you don't really want to open up with this, as she's actually really good more for like mid to late game. But if you can find a way to work her out during early game, then yeah, definitely try it out. And you could actually do a lot of good link plays with her now, especially with the new support that just came out from Flames of Destruction. Which, speaking of which, moving on, we got one Trickstar Mandrake. This card's surprisingly good. I didn't think I was gonna like her, but generally what you do is if you discard this card from your hand, you get to special summon her from your graveyard, but you have to banish it when it leaves the field. But also, if this card is sent to the graveyard as link material for a link summon of a Trickstar monster, you can target one monster your opponent... let me rephrase that. You can target one of your opponent's monsters, link monsters, that this card points to, and destroy it. So, like, this card also comes with a pretty decent destruction effect as well. But some people tend to overlook it, but yeah, don't overlook that second ability. It really comes in handy on certain situations. Moving on, we have the new Trickstar Nightshade, which is really good too. Now, when this card is used for link material, you get to special summon this from your graveyard, but you have to banish it from when it leaves the field again. But it's really good because you can recycle it just to basically link spam now. So yeah, definitely like run these, and believe it or not, it's super easy to bring out Mandrake, and I'll show you like how later on. But moving on to the Windwitch engine of the deck, we have triple Windwitch Ice Spell. Really excellent card, because as I mentioned in my Lair of Darkness video, a lot of Goki players are citing in Shadow Imprisoning Mirror for some reason, and now they're even also citing in Light Imprisoning Mirror, and that would actually lock out Trickstars if anything. So that's why it's good to play like Windwitches too, because it's like their wind attributes, they're unaffected by that. But anyway, you play 3 of these just because you want a higher chance of drawing into it. But what she does is, like, if you have no monsters, you can just special summon her from your hand. And then once you do that, you can just special summon a Windwitch from your deck, except herself, and inflict 500 points of damage, which comes to our next Trickstar monster, Windwitch Glassbell. You play this at 2, and when she's normal or special summoned, you get to add one Trickstar monster from your deck to your hand, which is really excellent, which in this case your target is going to be this, which you only play one of because you never want to draw into. Windwitch Snowbell. This card is really good because, like, if it's used, as long as you control 2 or more wind monsters and no others, you get to special summon this from your hand. And also, if this card is used for synchro material towards a wind synchro monster, like Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, it will no longer be destroyed by card effects. So it's really excellent. Wind Witches are probably the best cards to use to bring out a Crystal Wing. And moving on now, we only run, let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we run 8 hand traps. I'm sorry, 7 hand traps. I miscounted just now. But for our hand traps, we run triple Drone Lockbird, because Trickstars are still full powered, and the Drone Lockbird thing is still an excellent combo, basically just to lock out your opponents from getting a good hand. But yeah, definitely play this at 3, and what it does is like when your opponent adds a card from his deck to his hand, you could discard this, and for the duration of the turn, he will no longer be allowed to add cards from his deck to his hand. So it's really good on certain decks that do a lot of surging, like Spirals, Pendulums, even Gokis actually have a hard... Actually, this affects Gokis as long as you don't run with that Call by the Grave card, because Gokis are very, very prepared for that now. So like that's why I think Gokis are going to be like one of the top meta decks right now, because of the fact that True Dragos have been put in check, Pen Magicians are now put in check, and they have the chance of being on one of the top spots. Moving on, we have 2 Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, which in my opinion is still one of the better hand traps to play in this format, still, because the point is to keep your opponent from having monsters in his field, and also like it's a good way to bait out like certain effects. That way they can't. It deals with problematic monsters. So, and plus it doesn't target either, so it's really good to play. And then of course we have 2 Effect Veiler, which combos pretty well with Ghost Ogre. Still one of the better hand traps in this format, because like you could stop like monsters from activating certain effects. That way they can't do any searching, they can't do anything that's going to be a problem later on. Alright, moving on to spells and traps. We have triple Light Stage. Awesome card, still one of the best field spells for this deck. You get to add any Trickstar monster from your deck to your hand, and also you get to target 1 face down card your opponent controls, and you get to essentially lock it in place. And at the end of the turn, your opponent has to activate it or just send it straight to the grave. So really amazing card. People tend to overlook that second ability, so like I never do that, because like I'm always worried that there's going to be a Solemn Warning or strike that my opponent might contain, so I have to lock it in place and force him to keep it face down until the turn ends. So yeah, definitely play that, and it's a good way. That way you're no one can stop your Crystal Wing from being summoned either. Moving on, we got triple Terraforming, because you want to get to your light stage as quickly as possible. So like yeah, I used to only play it at 2, but now I thought 3 was actually the better number now, because the fact that Terraforming didn't get hit, which I kind of already knew that it wasn't going to happen. But yeah, like you definitely want to get your light stage as quickly as possible and try to bait out your opponent from like certain plays. That way you can deal with your real strategy from here on out. Alright, next up, our newest addition to the deck. Triple Called by the Grave. Yes, people, I do play it now, because mainly because like this deck does tend to have a vulnerability of hand traps, and people can easily stop me in my tracks. But now that I found room to actually play it, and with all the new strategies I've come up with, it really helps a lot. Like people can't really like stop me with Ash Blossom, Veiler, because Veiler I learned is not once per turn. I literally just read that card, so my dumb mistake on that one. But at least now I know I can stop it with Called by the Grave. Like my deck runs hand traps, and I have a way to stop hand traps in their tracks. That way I can do this with hardly any disruption. So Called by the Grave is definitely a must for this deck, especially if you're going to be doing the Windwitch engine, because Windwitches can also get stopped at any given point, because like yeah, just it can happen like quite a bit. So Called by the Grave is definitely a card you want to prepare yourself with, and it'll really get you far. Alright, I took out Cosmic Cyclones entirely, because especially against mirror matches, this card's a little bit better. But it's Twin Twisters, which you can also, like, as I mentioned Mandrake earlier, you can discard her and you can summon her back from the graveyard if that happens. So Twin Twisters, you could use her as you know, like the cost, that way she can bring herself back. But anyway, yeah, you pop 2 spells and traps. And again, it really helps against mirror matches, because like there's still the Eater of Millions build with Trickstars, which is going to be running Torrential Tribute, which is their secret weapon. And I was just doing the quote-unquote thing right there. So like you gotta get rid of those. That way your summons don't get disrupted. You don't have to worry about like bottomless trap holes either, because that's still at 3. Now Compulsory Evacuation Device is now at 3. So I'm like, great, now I gotta deal with that crap. So this is definitely a must to have right now. Better than Cosmic Cyclone right now, in my opinion. Especially again, Mandrake is now a thing, and plus you can actually bring her back from the Vantage Zone, which I'll get to later. But anyway, let's move on. We have 1 Trickstar Light Arena. Only 1 is all you're ever going to need in this deck, because it helps you deal with the link spam possibilities of Trickstars. Like, I don't have board load, but you know, you could actually make a first turn board load with this deck if you wanted to. But yeah, like generally you can get out like your best Trickstar monsters a lot faster, especially the Link ones, and yeah, it just really works well for this deck. So just one is all you're ever gonna need, like I said. But what it does is that when you link summon a Trickstar monster, you can target one Trickstar monster in your graveyard that was used for material, special summon it in defense mode, but its effects are negated. And this is a good way to like bring out like your easy Link 3. Even Bella Madonna can be summoned quite easily with this combo. And like stage, you could target one face down spell or trap your opponent controls, but at the end of the turn, instead of him activating it, it goes back to his hand. So like you'll have to reset it over and over again. Alright, moving on. We've reduced this card to 1 now because I found 2 just too clunky, and there was a time I actually drew into it like with its effect, but it's Pot of Desires. Honestly, I don't know how it was happening, but every time I played it, I always drew into my second one, and that just kind of like kills me. I'm like, great, I can't run. So you know what? And plus, I only ever played it at I only played like 1 per duel anyway, so yeah, just 1 Pot of Desires is actually enough just for this deck. You don't really need 2. I used to think you needed 2, but you know what? It really became an issue when I ran it at 2, so I just reduced it to 1, and 1 is all you're going to need. But yeah, basically you banish the top 10 cards of your deck face down, draw 2 cards. Everyone thinks it's a neg 9, but it's really not. Or neg 11, I don't know how people were quoting it, but generally like it's a high risk but high reward card, like especially because you're basically pitching a quarter of your deck to drawing cards that are like that you might need or might be at the bottom, and you're never going to be able to draw into it. So that's why it's good to cut down a quarter of your deck. That way you can draw into the cards you actually need. And plus, like most of the time, your board's going to be well set up to the point where it's okay. You can banish like 10 cards, like you already have everything you need. And plus, like Reincarnation, even if you banish that card, you can bring it back thanks to one of the new Trickstar Link monsters, which again I'll get to in just a moment. But let's move on. Next up, by the way, this card is really good now with this deck because like now you can amplify it a lot more, but it's 1 for 1 because the fact that we have a level 1 Trickstar monster, Nightshade. I've actually done this quite a lot already, but if I open up with this and Nightshade, I can discard Nightshade, discard Mandrake, and then bring out Nightshade, and then Mandrake comes back. So you can literally make a Link 3 monster in just 1 turn, just like that. It's like a 3-card combo just to make well, actually technically it's 2-card, but yeah, it's a 3-card combo to make a Link 3 monster in just 1 turn, and you've not even yet to make your normal summon. So this card is really good now for Trickstars, especially that Mandrake and Nightshade now exist. Next up we got Regeki. Of course, you want to blow up your opponent's entire board of monsters. That way you can get to your play without any negates, or like try to get rid of like monsters that are going to be a bit of a pain in the ass to deal with. So yeah, definitely play Regeki. And 1 Monster Reborn. Just because like there were times like people have kaiju'd over my Crystal Wings, so at times I just bring it back. Even though I don't get the invincibility anymore, I can still get my negates going. So like Monster Reborn is definitely a must for this deck, and just can't say much more than that. And lastly, we only play 3 traps in this deck, which is, of course, the triple Reincarnations. No more Solemn cards. Solemn cards were kind of, like, killing me a lot because I just pay way too many life points just to stop a summon. And honestly, it's just not as important as I thought it was going to be anymore. So I can still win a lot of duels even without the Solemn cards. So, yeah, just play the 3 Reincarnations and you're pretty much just set. Alright, moving on to the extra deck, we have the new Trickstar Bella Madonna. Excellent. I know some people don't like it, but I personally like it just because, like, as long as it's not pointing to any monsters, it's unaffected by card effects. And also, once per turn, you can inflict 200 life points to your opponent for each Trickstar monster in your graveyard of different names. So, like, the fact that if let's say you have Candina, one of everyone, like Licorice, Candina, Lilybell, even some of the Link monsters, you can dish out a lot of damage in just 1 turn. So it's like, it's really powerful in its own right. But the next one we're going to be playing is actually one of the better ones to play right now, Trickstar Delphinum. This card is really amazing. As long as she's pointing to at least 1 Trickstar monster, when you declare an attack, you can add any number of Trickstar cards up to the number of Link monsters your opponent controls. and add them to your hand. So like, let's say I was up against what deck is good with Link Span? Like, let's say World Chalice. My opponent had like a full board of, or at least let's say 4 Trickstar or 4 Link monsters in total, and I had 4 Trickstar cards banished, like 2 Reincarnations, a Nightshade, and a Mandrake. Okay, I declare, and it's pointing to at least 1 Trickstar monster, and I declare an attack. I get to essentially add all 4 cards, all 4 banished Trickstar cards back to my hand, and this card literally gains 1,000 attack points for each card. So this card can gain a lot of power, and it's really good to beat over like really big boss monsters. So this really helps Trickstars a lot now, because like now they can beat over high level, like high attack monsters, because this card gains a really big power boost for each Trickstar card that's added back to your hand. So it's one of the better ones right now. But right now I can only make room for just 1. But even then, you know, it's revivable through Reincarnations effect, and yeah, it's just really good. Next up, we still play 2 Holly Angels, because Holly Angel's still one of the better ones too, because like she inflicts damage for each Trickstar monster that gets summoned back. Oh, that gets summoned to her link points, whether it's a normal or special, and she gains power for each time a Trickstar monster does burn damage, including herself. So yeah, it's an excellent card. So definitely play it. I decided to reduce this one to 1 just because I didn't need it as much anymore. But 1 Blackhead Bat. I know people say this is the worst one. I actually like it because she weakens your opponent's monsters. That's the only reason why I played her. But you know, that's just out of my personal preference. So like you strengthen your Holly Angel and then weaken your opponent's monsters at the same time. So it's good in its own right, but it's not the best one. And then we have the new Trickstar Crimson Heart from the Shonen Jump promo. Whenever a Trickstar monster is summoned to her link points, you get to gain 200 life points, and also you can discard 1 Trickstar card, and you and your opponent draw 1 card. So that's basically 1 day of peace. But if your points are higher than your or if your life points are higher than your opponent's by 2,000, you get to draw 2 cards instead. So it's pretty good just to get a little extra draw power in your deck. And then lastly, we got Trickstar Bloom. Yep, we have a Link 1 now, people. Must require 1 level 2 or lower Trickstar monster, so Mandrake and Nightshade are going to be the ones you want to use. Even Lilybell can be used for this. But you can inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent for each card in their hand. And also, let's see here. If a face-up Trickstar monster this card points to is destroyed by battle or... Oh, okay, so that's the only time you get to inflict burn damage to your opponent from their hand. But okay, but no one really uses that effect too much. But if this card is Link Summon, you can make your opponent draw 1 card. And if you have Lilybell out on board, you can, you know, basically burn them for damage. So it's really not too bad in its own right, but you just mainly use it for material. So it's like, okay, so it's not too bad, but, you know, again, it's just for free material. That's all you really need it for. But anyway, let's move on. Next, we got our Synchros. We have 1 Black Rose Moonlight Dragon. Back when I first played Trickstars, I used to play Black Rose Dragon, but it's actually screwed me over just by using its nuke effect, because I had no way of reviving it, and plus, it left me wide open entirely. So I decided Moonlight was the better option. We got 1 Windwitch Winterbell, which is standard for the Windwitch combo. That way you can get Crystal Wing out on your first turn. And then we have Stardust Dragon, which sometimes, you know, my Crystal Wing strategy does backfire, because some people like to Reaper for some reason Crystal Wing, so I have Stardust as a backup. I was running Histor, but I'm just temporarily keeping him out just for a while, because I just like Stardust a little bit better. And then we have 1 Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, which is really excellent, because, you know, the fact that with the Windwitch engine, it just makes them really hard to get around, because you can't destroy them by Dark Hole, Raigeki, not even Torrential Tribute works. But, of course, Evacuation Device works, so, again, now that it's at 3, I have to find ways to get around that problem. Alright, next up for our Xyz monsters, we have number 41, Baguska, which is basically Skill Drain. 1 Tornado Dragon, which pops spells and traps as well, so it's a really good card, and not too hard to bring out at all. 1 Slacker Magician, because, like, Nightshade is level 1, Drone Lockbird is level 1, so it's really not hard to bring them out, and plus, it meets the requirements to bring out our last Xyz monster, which is Downward Magician. Gains, let me see, let me double check. Okay, 200 attack points for each Xyz material, and plus, she can inflict piercing damage, and each time a monster battles, or if she battles, I have to detach an Xyz material. at the end of the battle phase. And once she's out, I believe I'm supposed to, let's see. No, okay, so she doesn't get destroyed, but Baguska does get destroyed if you're out of materials. But yeah, she'll just go back to her base 2100 attack points if she's out of materials. But overall, she's still a really excellent card to play in this deck. That's just me, you know. All right, and for the side deck, we have 2 Ash Blossoms. Still an excellent hand trap to play. I just sometimes side out, you know, between that with Ghost Ogre or Veiler. So definitely still play Ash Blossom. I love Ash Blossom. It's a great card. And then we have we decided to side this off to make room, you know, just because like I didn't need hand traps quite as much in this deck, but I did switch out Honest. You know, just it's still great to play, you know, every now and then in case if like, you know, for some reason your Windwitch strategy backfires, you'll at least have a backup way to, you know, strengthen your Trickstar monsters by themselves. So still a great card to play. I definitely still recommend playing Honest. Next up we got 1 Dark Hole. You know, sometimes you can take out like an extra spell, like maybe that light arena, and just make room for another destroy all monsters type card. So Dark Hole definitely a must. Next up we got double Dark Room of Nightmare. Apparently the burn damage engine is still like, it's starting to become a lot more consistent now. People are finding ways to make it work, so Dark Room of Nightmare is definitely a good card. I only play it at 2 in this deck because I don't need it quite as much. But if you're going to do like the turbo burn of Trickstars, you're definitely going to want to play that at 3. But yeah, generally with this, with the Windwitch engine 2 is actually kind of enough. And you really don't need much more than that. Now this card is really good with Trickstars. In fact, it's good with almost any build. But, and it's actually a card that's been overlooked quite a bit, but I've actually tested this out yesterday and it actually helps out a lot. It's Contract with Dawn Thousand. Now what this does, like a lot of people don't know what this does, but what it does is that you and your opponent take 1,000 points of damage and you both get to draw a card. But that card has to be revealed. And if it's a spell, well, if you're, okay, so this is how it works. So from now on, like whenever you draw a card, all cards that you draw have to be revealed. And if one of those cards is a spell card, you are not allowed to normal summon or set monsters until you get rid of that spell. Now, believe it or not, this actually slows down quite a lot of decks because not every deck can use their spells right away. Some come with restrictions, some come like with prices or just have that require certain specifications to activate. Now, for Trickstar players like myself, this does not affect me in any way because we can pretty much use almost every spell in our arsenal. Now, the only way you can, of course, normal summon, of course, is you have to set the spell that you drew into, and then you're free to normal summon. But think of it this way. When you start doing that, and if you can't activate that spell, you're basically losing all of your spell and trap card, space. So, like, once you use up all your zones, then what are you left? You can't activate any more spells until you get rid of the ones you currently have. And plus, the fact that you pretty much already know what your opponent is setting, you can easily pop those cards knowing that they might come in handy later on. So, like, ritual cards are going to be kind of they're just going to be a problem now, and they're not going to be able to get rid of them for a while until they reach the requirements. Or fusion cards, you know, if they don't have the right fusion materials, then what do they have? How can they use them? They have to set them in order to normal summon. So, like, yeah, Contract with Dawn Thousand is actually a really excellent card with Trickstars. It really slows down quite a lot of decks because, again, they can't use their spells right away, whereas Trickstars, they can pretty much use every spell in their arsenal just to slow down their opponent. All right, and then for traps, we have 2 Blazing Mirror Force. Really good card, you know, like it's basically a much better version of Ring of Destruction. If your opponent declares an attack, destroy all attack position monsters they control, and both players take half of the damage they take. So, like, it's really excellent. And I found this card pretty good with Trickstars as well. Mainly because there's a lot of decks that can, like, essentially, like, bring out, like, a lot of monsters, like World Chalice, Spirals, Gokis now. This card will really devastate them, but it's triple Wall of Disruption. For every monster they control, they lose 800 attack points. So let's say your opponent had 3 monsters, right? And he declares an attack. You play this. 3 monsters times 800, that's 2,400 attacks. So their monsters will permanently lose 2,400 attack points for each one. And if they have a full board, all their monsters are basically going to go down to 0 attack, meaning they're just sitting ducks at that point. and they can't. And if they already declared an attack, they can't really change positions until until the next turn. So like you could literally inflict a lot of battle damage just with this all alone, and it's also a good way to beat around boss monsters too. Because again, if they can't be destroyed by card effects or by battle like Beals, then hey, you got a way to beat over it now. Because again, that power down is permanent. They can't get any more points back. Of course, if they still have some points left, then of course they can get a power boost. But once it hits 0, it stays 0. And according to apparently that's how it works in dueling. So that's why I decided to run this card, because it's so damn annoying, but I love it at the same time. So yeah, Wall of Disruption, give it a try. It's really excellent. And I don't know, that's just me. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you on the next one.